Greetings, wrestling fans. This is Jim Fannin, the guy you love to hate, or maybe you just hated my guts, period. I have the pleasure of leading you into the Mid-South Memories podcast. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the individuals making the statements, and they do not necessarily reflect those of Nick Maniwa, Mike Ruff, or the BNMVS Podcast Network. This podcast is intended for mature audiences only. The IWA Mid-South shows covered on this podcast contained adult themes. Violence for the sake of violence. Bloodshed for the sake of bloodshed. Explicit language. We're on these shows because if you ain't hardcore, you ain't shit. So that just leaves one thing left to say. Nick Maniwa, start the podcast.
Guys, gals, non-binary pals, we in here, Pro Wrestling's BFF Nick Maniwa, joined by Mike Ruff of Ruff.Figures.com for another episode of Mid-South Memories. Mike, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today, Nick?
I am doing well. Kind of late on the monthly schedule for this one. I'm going to try to get it up tonight, but if it doesn't happen, you're hearing this in the future. I'm sorry about that. I got two big GCW shows coming up this weekend, so I'm going to try to power through this and get it up so people traveling to said shows can listen to this on their way to the shows. We are doing Heartbreak, which is it went on to become an annual show for us at IWA Midsouth. I believe the first one was in 2014. This is the 2015 edition of Heartbreak, and it is available on IWTV if you have the desire to watch it. The big marquee match on the show is a returning Chris Hero taking on IWA World Champion Kongo Kong. I forgot to do my, what's going on in the world, but it was only 2015, so hopefully people remember what was going on in the world and stuff of that nature. But yeah. We are live at the Jammers Roller Dome in, I believe it's it's Clarksville, Indiana. Clarksville, Indiana and Jeffersonville, Indiana, where the arena is like a very fine, like, dividing line. So, like, you could, like, be in Clarksville and then take a step and be in Jeffersonville. It's very weird. Yeah. But Jammers is only, 6 minutes away from the arena. So we went from Jammers. We went from Colgate to Jammers and then to the arena eventually. We start off the show with opening announcements. And Ian's a little dressed up because John Gray, the referee, was marrying his girlfriend Karen in the ring at intermission. So he is dressed to the nines, I guess, for a former king of the death matches. He announced that Hero is in Louisville. He had a delayed flight and he is en route to the venue. So yeah. After that,
another IWA show gets started with the obligatory Ian intro that was also had a couple of surprise run-ins, we'll say.
Right.
It's not often that I think Ian's speeches get disrespected like that. But hey, you know what? We had Jimmy Jacobs run in, and we'll call it a run in, and interrupt talking about BJ Whitmer arguing over Ace Perry and something that would happen later in the show. It was a good setup for what would go on. To be I believe that was the semi-main event of the evening. A good little, hey, we're not on the same page type thing. Gabriel Gray actually came out first. And there was an incident. There was a tryout show the week before this where Gabriel Gray was a young Indiana-based wrestler who looked like $1 million, but the fans really didn't give him the time of day, didn't give him any chance to impress. They just hated him, and he wasn't the greatest pro wrestler. So he was at the tryout show trying to win a spot on the roster, and he lost his match, and Ian was ring announcing, and he made a comment like
in character, like, hey, better luck next time, kid, or we need someone to help out with gimmicks or something like that. And Gabriel Gray shoulder checked him like hard, and then it led to a scuffle between Ian and Gabriel Gray, where Ian like tried to pull out his eyeball, and like the locker room came out, and it was just a big thing. So then before that incident, Ian was like, hey, be here next week for Heartbreak, it's a bigger show, yada yada yada. So I guess to make sure there was no legal actions, it got turned into a storyline. So Gabriel Gray comes out and very longly and wordedly talked about trying to earn a spot and how he was booked prior to the incident. So he's here because, he didn't want to miss the booking, blah, 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 blah. And like I said, Jimmy Jacobs comes in. That was 10 minutes of our lives we will never get back. So if you're done dealing with jobbers here, let's talk about something that's real. And I laughed so hard when he said that.
I love heel Jimmy Jacobs too. For the second half of his career, he was like this asshole heel, and as a smaller guy, it made it even more fun and more interesting because he acted like a badass, and he was just this little skinny dude still. But he had that experience, and he was like the proven vet at the time. So I dug that.
Right, and this is. The Ace Perry Jimmy Jacobs feud has already been going on. At one point, Ian and Jimmy got into a scuffle after an Ace Perry match where he wouldn't get off of Perry or something. I forget, or he pushed Ian, or I don't know. There was a lot of craziness at that Roller Dome. I got to be honest. I'm glad for this show I was back against the wall as Jeremy Ping with Swerve Video was there to record it. He is now an employee of AEW doing camera stuff. So a little glow up there for Jeremy Ping. Like you said, Jimmy's pissed about BJ Whitmer feeling like Ace Perry's a star because, Jimmy's like saying, Ace doesn't have it. Whatever you see in him is false, yada, yada, yada. BJ comes out and says he's a grown-ass man with his own thoughts, and he feels that way truthfully. And BJ's going to be in Ace's corner tonight to make sure there's no shadiness going on. Like Jimmy said, a little long of an opening announcement segment with especially as long as the show's going to be. But once we got to the meat of it, I think it worked out there. What do you think, Mike?
I agree. I like the intro. We talked about that before. Ian's intros and exits of shows is kind of a tradition with IWA shows, and sometimes they set things up like this one, which was good, especially for me who hadn't seen this originally when it first happened. Having a little bit of intro, a little bit of background on what's going on, just kind of set the stage a little bit, helped a lot with a new viewer, and I appreciated that as a new viewer in this environment. Before we get too deep into the show, Nick, can you talk about Jammers a little bit? I think this is the first show that we've done on the podcast that was set at the Jammers venue. And, it represents, I think, a big and kind of important era for IWA, at least, the later. It sets the stage for the later years of IWA and some of the talent that came out of that era. And, it's a cool-looking venue, and I think we'll call it historic now in terms of IWA. Could you elaborate a little bit on the Jammers environment and kind of the importance of that venue for IWA?
Yeah, I'm not sure who. I want to say Mitch Ryder and his promotion XCW Midwest was the first person to run Jammers as a wrestling venue. But like I said, it's a roller rink, a giant roller rink floor, concrete floor. They got the barriers around. And then there's also like video games and claw machines and a concession stand and, quarter machines and stuff like that. I mean, it's a real roller rink. But they really only did business on the weekend. So Friday night, Saturday, maybe sometimes Sunday. So we ran shows on Thursday evening, So they had nothing going on in there, so they were not making any money. So that's why we got in there and, ran there for quite a few years when Evolution Pro Wrestling became a thing, and I was helping out with the booking there. We brought in Pete Dunne and Mark Andrews doing their U.S. Defend Indie Wrestling Tour in 2014, 2013, 2014, I believe it was. And they were like, this venue is awesome. This place is incredible. It's just, they were really into it. And we're like, really? It's fucking Jammers, guys. Like, calm down. Like, this ain't shit. And then I told you that there was an issue where Jammers wasn't paying their heating bill. And, during January, February, March, sometimes Kentuckiana gets super cold. It's super cold right now. It's like 20-something degrees in Kentuckiana right now, in Louisville, where I sit. It's 39, but last night it was like 22 degrees. So, if you're going to a wrestling show, you don't want to freeze your ass off. So it was a combination of Jammers not paying their heating bill and it being so outrageous because they hadn't paid it in so many months. They made it where there was no more wrestling in Jammers, and that was kind of the end of Jammers for us. The first match, we have an elimination 4-way tag of the Hooligans, Devin and Mason Cutter, the Vikings of Frank Wyatt and the American Viking, the makeshift team of Dewey Barnes and Nick Iggy representing Team IOU, and then the Elements of Wrestling 2.0, which was Josh Crow and Caden Sade. In terms of competitors still active in this match, Mason Cutter, Frank Wyatt sometimes, Herzog, the American Viking, has made a return to pro wrestling. I don't believe Dewey Barnes is wrestling. Dewey Barnes is like a half-brother of John Wayne Murdoch. And Nick Iggy still wrestling with Kerry Awful. I don't know if Josh Crow is still wrestling, but Caden Sade, I saw him on that Knoxville show that I did last year, and he was like, "Holy shit, man, what are you doing here?" And I was like, "I don't know, man. I'm making towns." We got Sabrina as the referee. Right. Well, I mean, that was one of his regular promotions. It was my first time there, so I could understand his confusion. Myself and Reed by God Barbecue Bentley on commentary. At this point, we are on no DQ, no countout rule set in IWA Mid-South. Like always with big elimination matches or tag matches, giant dive spot, the referee forgets that it's elimination and botches the first count for the first elimination. And then the Hooligans win over the Elements of Wrestling with a Fire Thunder Driver, double foot stomp on a chair to Caden Sade. Any comments or thoughts about this contest, Mike?
Yeah, like you said, pretty standard multi-man tag elimination match. Some of the dives are pretty crazy. I think one of the cutters hit a top rope Spanish fly to the outside on top of the pile, which was kind of cool. Don't see that often. The American Viking hit a top rope sit-out chokeslam. That was kind of crazy. But yeah, just kind of standard opener, get the fans into it. A lot of spots, cool stuff. Like you said, the Hooligans win with the Fire Thunder Driver. That looks pretty great. So overall, yeah, pretty standard opening match. I think everybody looked pretty good. I think it was a good example of getting as many guys on the show as possible. Like we kind of talked about a little bit. It's a big show. A lot of guys that did some good things, and I think Ian wanted to reward some of those guys with putting them on the big show. So good on everybody.
Right. Ian always said that part of his, downfall was that he was one of the wrestlers, so he knew what it felt like to be left off shows. So he didn't want to do that to someone that had been, they're busting their ass every week, taking, shitty paydays or no paydays or, just helping to set up the ring and not getting a match on one show and yada, yada, yada. So that's why there was always 800 fucking people on shows. Speaking of 800 people, 10-man scramble match follows up the 8-man, 4-way tag
So if you needed an example of how many people were on the show, the first 2 matches, we're talking 18 wrestlers already.
Right, and it's 19, 20, 21, 22 if there's managers. So, that's just ringside. This match is Chip Day, Suge D, Zodiac, Gary J, Dale Patricks, Nick Depp, Ray Waddell, Jordan Whitaker, Gibson Gray. Oh, Gabriel Gray is Gibson Gray for some reason. He changed his name. I don't know why. And then Joe Iker, who we call something else on commentary. I couldn't really understand what we were saying. And that had to have been just misinformation from someone that, we didn't know this guy. Joe Iker was a guy that rode with Jonathan Gresham. So anytime Jonathan Gresham is on a Jammer show, he's probably there on the undercard. He wears like a blindfold thing. I didn't understand.
What is that? Right.
And I don't understand it now. Maybe like to heighten his senses or something. I don't know.
What is that guy? Daredevil? No, what is his name?
Right, yeah.
Is that his name?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not up
Ben
on my
Affleck. Blind Ben Affleck.
Yeah. The winner of this match becomes the number 2 contender behind me, Mitch Page. Me, Mitch Page had won a match, I think, at the tryout show against John Wayne Murdoch and Reed Bentley to become the number 1 contender. But he knew that the Kong and Hero match was coming up, so he wasn't sure who he would be facing at the end of February, whether it was Kong or Hero, for said IWA World title. No pins to be made until all 10 competitors in the match. This is 420 booking at its absolute finest. I mean,
I've never seen a number 2 contender match.
Right. Gary J start off the match with Suge D. Dale Patricks comes out. He's being mentored by the Suicide Kid at this time. Ray Waddell and Jordan Whitaker had won their spots on the tryout show the week prior. They impressed Ian and I guess management so much that they got thrown into this. Nick Depp steals Zodiac's spot, which led to Zodiac whooping that ass later on once he got out there. Nick Depp still competing in this match. Chip Day, Suge D, Zodiac, Gary J, Dale Patricks, Nick Depp, Ray Waddell, Jordan Whitaker still competing. I don't believe Joe Iker is, unless he's going by something else. And then Gibson Gray has left the pro wrestling business. Gibson Gray eats a heart punch. Zodiac eliminates Dale and Gary J at the same time. Zodiac wins this match, just running through everyone essentially. Any comments about this scramble match?
Yeah, the commentary was great on this match. There's a lot of things that were said that kind of made me chuckle. One of them, Dale Patrick sets up for a dive on the outside, and I think it was Bentley was like, this might be awesome, it might be bad. He's landed on his head a bunch of times, which is especially relevant for this podcast because we had a whole 20-minute conversation about how Dale Patrick's almost died doing that moonsault a couple shows ago. So that was funny. Seeing early Suge D for me was funny. I mean, he's a guy that AEW fans would be familiar with. He, did a lot of his dance-based offense and dancing and groping and all that fun stuff. So, 10-man scramble, a lot of people in a match, but it didn't seem over the top any more than any other scramble would. Like you said, Zodiac kind of ran through everybody. Interesting look for Zodiac here. Not one that I'm super familiar with, only seeing him kind of within the past couple of years myself. So, yeah, it got Zodiac over as a crazy monster that, takes people out in multiples. So good for him.
And with that, we come to the wedding of the night between referee John Gray and Karen. They go through the whole deal. Rodney Rush is the, not the pastor. What's it called? Like the
officiant?
Yeah, there you go. The officiant for this. They go through the real thing. John Gray's like, I didn't want to write out something. I wanted to come from the heart. They actually had met at IWA Midsouth like years and years ago and never got together until later on in life. So it's kind of like a full circle moment here.
Did they meet while he was reffing? Or was that before he was reffing?
I don't even think. I think they were just both fans.
Okay.
Rodney Rush was like, I have something for the couple. Here comes Kongo Kong. And you're like, oh shit, what's going on? And then they shake hands, and you're like, okay, that's not bad. And then he grabs John up and gives him a big military slam, and he's going up top for the splash. And then Chris Hero runs in the front door and makes the save in his street clothes to prevent John Gray dying. And then they have a stare down. Does Hero and Kong to end the segment to put some more steam on the main event. And I told you, I was like, you can skip through this, man. There's stuff at the end if you want to skip to the end. But it was a shoot wedding happening. No cake to be tossed in anyone's face, but the groom did get slammed and almost splashed. What'd you think about this one, Mike?
Yeah, it was funny, dude. First of all, seeing everyone dressed up in like shirt and ties, especially Ian, is always a good time. When Kongo Kong comes out, I think it's you on commentary, is like, get out of the ring, or someone says get out of the ring. It's so funny. It's just like, oh god, we know what's coming.
I don't have the mic in front of my face, but I'm like, I have it to my side, and I'm just like, get the girls out, like get the hell out of here.
Is this before or after the splash?
That was before.
Oh,
that was
okay.
Before, so I hadn't even felt the wrath, but I knew.
But you knew.
I
knew
take
something that advice a couple of years later.
Just, really ruined
a true massacre. It could have been like Kill Bill in IWA form.
Right, that would have been fantastic.
Yeah, it was a good setup by Ian's intro to the show too. Chris Hero's not in the building yet. Yada yada yada. Okay, so Kong comes out, causes some destruction. And then, to the shock of everyone, here runs Hero because everybody thought he hadn't arrived yet. But clearly he had, and they had a little, standoff, and it kind of put over the main event a little bit too. Got some more interest in it right there on the spot.
And I don't recall if Hero was actually not in the building yet. I want to say he was there the whole time, but I could be wrong. It's been almost 10 years now. But yeah, I thought that was great. I always like when, here comes the babyface with street clothes in his gear bag, and he's, jumping on the apron for the hot tag or whatever the fuck.
And
after that,
what a perfect dynamic of Kong as the monster heel in true form, and Chris Hero as the hero. Like you couldn't write it any better than that.
Right, and Kong was on a tear here. He was just, the most dominant champion we'd ever seen. He had been, champion for 200-something days, and he was just the man around IWA Mid-South. After that, we have a finishers match between John Wayne Murdoch and Shane Mercer, where you have to hit your finisher before you go for a pin. John Wayne Murdoch will be using the flipping pile driver, the Deep South Destroyer. Shane Mercer will be using the Moonsault and Battery, the Moonsault Fallaway Slam, and they must hit that move before they make a pin. And as we learned myself during the match, it was falls count anywhere, so they could hit their move on the floor, yada, yada, yada. John Wayne Murdoch did not have to hit it from an elevated surface. He could just do a, regular Canadian destroyer to count for the move. John Wayne Murdoch had thrown in the towel for Mercer a few months earlier when Mercer was fighting Kong for the title. The angle at the time was John Wayne Murdoch was a drunk, pretty much like Hawk during the Russo era of, that Night Raw. We did not have a Titantron for John Wayne Murdoch to fall off of, unfortunately.
He would have.
But after John Wayne did that to Mercer, Mercer did it to John Wayne Murdoch during his big title match. And John Wayne Murdoch's thing at the time was, what if, when it came to the IWA title, what if I won? What if, one night I shocked the world and I beat Kongo Kong, blah, 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 blah. So that was a big, running thing for, weeks leading up to this title match. And then he gets fucked by Mercer doing the same thing that John Wayne Murdoch had done to him. Mercer and John Wayne always had great matches. they hit multiple finishes in the match. And then the finish of the match happens when Mercer wins with a moonsault and battery to the floor through a table. And then after the match, Mercer offers to sponsor John Wayne Murdoch and help him with his drinking problem. And then at the end of my sentence for my notes, I just put LOL.
Yeah.
So like, I get like trying to make like real life, stuff happen, but it's just so ridiculous too. And people were like totally in on this. There was like multiple promos where like, I'm behind the camera, like looking for John Wayne for a promo, and he's out back at Jammers, like getting drunk, and here comes here comes Bentley and Ian, like, whoa, what are you doing, man? It was just crazy. It was just hilarious stuff looking back on it. What do you think about this finishers match, Mike?
Yeah, it was funny. What this match taught me is it kind of reinforced our idea that Jim Fannin is needed to regulate all of these stipulations. Between the number 2 contenders match and this one with the finishers, and when the finisher can be hit, and if it needs to be hit immediately before the pin, and if the deep style destroyer needs to be off the top rope, I felt like we needed Jim Fannin there to kind of keep everybody straight. So shout out Jim Fannin again. I'm gonna pitch that role for you, buddy, every chance I get. I think there's a need here, especially. I mean, IWA loves their stipulations, right? We'll see that again later with another match on a pole. Very interesting. I think we need, at the time we needed someone to regulate. Jim Fannin was the man of the time, missed opportunity. Anyways, the match, like you said, was great. They have great chemistry together, and just watching the match, you wouldn't really know that these two guys were the super credentialed, bona fide deathmatch wrestlers that they are. They put on a good match without any of that. Lots of hard hitting stuff. Mercer hit some chops and slaps to like Murdoch's throat area, and it looked crazy. Like you said, he hit that deep set or the moonsault and battery on the floor through the tables, which was crazy. I expected kind of them teasing that and not it to actually happen, and then it happened, and I was like, oh shit, hopefully they're not dead, which I know they're not
right.
dead. But anyways, it was one of those spots where it's like, good lord, that could have gone terribly wrong, and luckily it didn't.
Yeah, and they had 2 tables set up there, and Mercer just jumped further than I guess he thought, so
yeah,
they only crashed through one. But it's kind of incredible watching it back. The fans are. I mean, we didn't really mention the fans. It's a packed house here at Jammers. There's probably 200 people, maybe 225 total. I mean, they're really packed in there to watch the show, and the fans were super into it. Especially I want to say there was probably 70 or so like regular every single week fans that was coming to Jammer shows. So they were highly invested and emotionally invested in this. And like I said, Mercer offers to sponsor John Wayne at the end on the microphone, and they walk off hand in hand together. And I forget what happens with that. I don't recall. I don't know if Bentley and Murdoch started tagging and that kind of ended that, or what. My memory's gone. Some stuff has been exited from my brain since that time. But the 6-man tag originally signed to be me, Mitch Page, Mistress Burgundy, and Corporal Robinson is not that, because Corporal Robinson has some health issues. Cash Flow returns as a partner for me, Mitch Page, and Burgundy. He only appeared for IWA Midsouth 6 more times after this. They're taking on the Detroit 3 of Briar Wellington, Joseph Swartz, and Randy West, who was kind of like the top heel group at the time here in IWA Mid-South, driving down every week from Michigan. There was, I want to say, before he was solely focused on Kong, Rodney Rush was managing them, or at least had some association with them that we will see later on in the card. Classic heel babyface tag team wrestling. This eventually breaks out into an all-around the building brawl. Cash Flow tries an oh shit leg drop from the top of the... Right, from the top to the floor on Briar Wellington in a pile of chairs, crash and burn, and we can't see that all the way over where we are on commentary. So for a while, I'm not sure if he hit it or he missed it, and potentially that was the last oh shit leg drop in Cash Flow's wrestling career. I don't know how many more of those that he did, you know, in his career.
Sure, yeah. He sure went out with a bang.
Right, he transitioned to the frog splash nowadays. Cash Flow still an active competitor. Briar Wellington, Joseph Swartz, and Randy West still also active in this match. Mitch Page has since retired, and Mistress Burgundy has also left the pro wrestling business. Burgundy and Cash get taken out of this match, and then the Detroit Three are just taking care of Mitch, really beating on his knee, beating him down, where the referee finally stops the match as Mitch cannot continue. What do you think about this one, Mike?
Yeah, it was another kind of like the OGs of IWA versus kind of the newer generation with the heel group. Mitch Page, of course, in the classic red singlet forever. And then Cash Flow, kind of a different look for him with the plain black singlet. Anyway,
right.
Like you said, that oh shit leg drop to the floor, if that was the last one he ever did, God bless him. He sure fucking went for it. So good for him. A little disappointed we don't get to see it throughout the later stages of his career, but can you blame his ass? No.
Right.
The finish, like you said, was kind of a mess, but it is what it is. The point of the match was, like you said, classic heel versus classic babyface teams. The babyface team represented kind of like Ian's students throughout the years, which is a cool concept. And then just kind of looking back at, a guy like Joseph Schwartz, who is a totally different character now. And I think it's much more fitting now. We kind of talked about a little bit. His current character seems to be much more him than the kind of generic bad guy, super mean heel character that he was playing here. And not that he didn't do it well, but I think nowadays he's definitely embraced the true side of his personality that people get behind.
Yeah, totally. Like, he's definitely better in his role now than he was back then, in my opinion. Nothing but love to old Swartzy and Randy West. Still doing it nowadays. They have a big show coming up this weekend in Berwyn for Ruthless Pro Wrestling, if I'm not mistaken. Taking on my pals, the Bruisers. So that should be some crazy, bloody action. After this, we go back to technical wrestling as BJ Whitmer takes on Jonathan Gresham. The 2014 version of this match was my match of the year. Devin Cutter of the Hooligans is my commentary partner for this. I don't really have too many notes on this. This is, just a great technical wrestling match between two great technical wrestlers. What do you say, Mike?
Yeah, I agree. Not too much to say about it other than just sitting and watching the action. Big height difference, obviously, aesthetically. Jonathan Gresham is a shorter guy. BJ Whitmer's kind of a longer and leaner guy. Gresham, I mean, this was what, 9 years ago?
Right.
He was good then. He's better now. It's pretty amazing. And, I know you're a big fan of Jonathan Gresham. I'm not super familiar with him other than, the big matches that I've seen here and there. I think something that makes him, held in such a high regard is how he mixes everything together so well. Like, he's thought of as this amazing technical wrestler, and he totally is. But the fact that he can mix in some of the high spots and, the moonsaults to the outside and stuff like that just seamlessly into his technical wrestling is kind of marvelous, and it's really fun to watch. And as much credit as he gets for being a great technical wrestler, he does so much more than that, and he mixes in the stuff that's not not technically technical wrestling. It's more of like the flippy high spot stuff, but he does it so seamlessly and so technically correct that it just looks so great. And I think BJ Whitmer is the perfect base or the perfect opponent for him to get some of that stuff over. Jonathan Gresham got dumped on his head a bunch of times and just kind of kept coming back. The finish ultimately is BJ rolling up Gresham for a 3 count. And it just kind of, it ended suddenly, but I was more than satisfied with the match and kind of everything that happened in it. And I think the crowd was into it too. And really got behind it.
We follow that up with some violence as a dog collar match is on the menu. Reed Bentley taking on JC Rotten. And to give some background to this, JC Rotten and Mickey Knuckles had aligned to turn on his dad to try to take over the company. So JC Rotten is a bad guy. I'm not sure if Mickey had already left by this point. JC Rotten is my nephew John Calvin. So the whole time I'm just burying him on commentary and, really selling that this is a family torn apart, essentially. At one point they brawl over towards me and I throw my water bottle at him. I throw my commentator partner water bottle at him. Normal dog collar match. They use some chairs. They use a staple gun, barbed wire boards, yada, yada. At this point, JC's girlfriend, Sabrina, is the referee. She turns and crotches Bentley, and I am just relentless on commentary, just calling her all these derogatory names, to really put over this turn on, commentary. Ian runs in, tries to hit JC with the chair. JC moves and he nails Bentley, and then it looks like, oh, it was a setup. The Rottens are, reuniting, and then Ian hits JC with the chair. Sabrina gets tossed. Zodiac runs out and posts Ian to bust him open. He takes out Bentley, and then JC wins. Pretty much classic IWA Bedlam here. Everyone's bloody. There's a great shot of my ass to end the segment. Yeah, just, in there checking on Bentley. What'd you think about this one, Mike?
Yeah, like you said, classic IWA Bedlam. A lot going on. I think the commentary really put over some of the points of the feud. Looking back, it was kind of from what I understand, Reed was kind of, the adoptive bigger brother, and, goes to Ian. He's like, hey, let me take him out. I'll take him out for you. And Ian's like, yeah, please take him out. So throughout the course of the match, it's just relentless. Like, they're going hard. The commentary is also directed in that fashion. I think a couple times you said, John Calvin, referred to him by the name John Calvin rather than JC, called him the family member that nobody likes. They made that heel, the ref turn, and, stupid whore ref and stuff like that. Like, it was intense. You could feel the hate there, and the fans were all into it, and they were following along, and I felt like everybody was in agreement that we wanted this guy to die. And, it was, like you said, classic IWA. Dog collar thing was cool. After the ref with the crotch, Ian comes out and they do the chair thing, like you said. He goes to throw her out of the ring and just kind of bounces her between his body and the ropes a couple times before she fully goes out. It's crazy looking. But, as a smaller female, she kind of gets ragdolled in there before she hits the ground, and it looks brutal. There's a couple cases where Bentley brings in the barbed wire boards and does some crazy stuff with the boards. There's another chain brought in, a brainbuster on top of the chain on the top rope, or the top turnbuckle. It's just kind of crazy. There's a lot going on, a lot of commentary going on. Once you know the background story, I think it helps you understand the passion behind it. And what better show title than Heartbreak for this? I felt like the entire show the fans were so emotionally invested in, and none more than in this match. So yeah, at the end of the match, kind of breaks down. There's a run-in with Zodiac, and it just kind of breaks down. There's a tombstone on the chair for the 3 count. Bentley's kind of all fucked up. Like you said, you go and check on him. It's one of those, like, the entire IWA family is involved in this, and I think that was the direction that the booking was going in anyways, and it was, really well done.
There was a week prior that JC Rotten came out from underneath the ring. He had been, under the ring for hours and attacked Bentley and left him laying, or, hit him with something. And then at the time we were working with the band Vaderbomb, and they had performed at King of the Death matches for us, or they had gone on to perform at King of the Deathmatch for us, but we later did like a big 8-man tag with members of Vader Bomb and Bentley and against Swartz and hashtag horror show. And Vader Bomb would come to the show in like their full lucha mask. And one of the weeks, JC had a lucha mask and walked in with Vader Bomb. And then as Bentley was making his entrance for the match, he posted Bentley and left him laying in a pool of his own blood and then ran out the front door. So there was a lot of like underhanded shadiness leading up to this, whereas like you can't run away. That's why we're in a dog collar match. You can't run away from me whooping that ass. But there was a lot of good little moments weeks prior to set up, why we're having a dog collar match. We couldn't get a cage into Jammers, so we had to go with the second option in terms of someone not running away. After that, some more violence to be had, as there is a spike on a pole match between the Zombie Princess Jimmy Jacobs and Ace Perry. And funny little sidetrack, Ace Perry and Jimmy Jacobs just recently had a segment at AAW's 20th anniversary show where Jimmy was out there just saying, if it wasn't for AAW, my career would have been nothing, because infamously he threw the IWA World title in the trash at AAW, and that's what kind of really put them on the map and got people, familiar with AAW. So as he's cutting this promo, Ace Perry comes out and he's like, Jimmy, I liked you a lot more when you was a drug addict, because you wouldn't tell the fans lies like you are now. And they got into a little scuffle. And I just thought it was super cool that, almost 10 years later, they're still, interacting with each other. They went on later during the Memphis Flea Market era to be aligned together. And it was Dale Patrick and Ace Perry, and later Shane Bender as part of Jimmy's Angels, is what they called them, as a little group. But anyway, this is a spike on a pole match, and it's basically whoever gets to use the spike can use it, and then pin, submission, knockout for the rules there. It's not you get the spike and you win, or whatever.
We need to jump in.
Right. Fun match here. Ace Perry's the first one to get the spike. Jimmy Jacobs tries to leave the ring. BJ pops up on the apron, and you're like, oh shit, it's about to go down. And then Whitmer throws a spike to Jimmy, and Jimmy busts Ace open. During the match, or during this attack with the spike, it's mentioned on commentary that he has a prom coming up. And Ace Perry did take Amanda Roberts to her junior prom that year. And that video kind of went viral on YouTube, where, it had like 300-something thousand views. It was on, the TMZ like shows as like a little puff piece and stuff like that. So that's a true statement. He did have a prom later, that month. And with that YouTube video going viral, we were able to buy the cameras and commentary set up to have 2 cameras and commentary for every show going forward after we got that YouTube money. So shout out to Ace Perry and Amanda for that YouTube money. But like I said, BJ Whitmer turns, and then it's BJ and Jimmy, as the top dogs, and IWA Midsouth, the top heels. And, Whitmer says, we're going to be your worst nightmare going forward. And then background on that, the next month at Prince of the Death Matches, Jimmy Jacobs loses a loser leaves town against Ace Perry because he got hired by WWE to be in creative. So this pretty much went nowhere in terms of them running, rough shot over IWA Mid-South. What do you think about this spike on a pole match, Mike?
Yeah, spike on a pole is very late WCW era, so it automatically gets my interest. My immediate question was, is there only one spike? You know, Jimmy Jacobs is known for holding spikes in his boots.
Right.
No one checked his boots. I'm predicting Jimmy pulls another spike or 2 or 3 or a handful of them out of his boots throughout and doesn't even need to climb the pole. But he gave it a try. Little did I know that BJ Whitmer had a spike in his pants, his pocket.
Oh, that's a good one.
In his pocket, sorry. Man. All right. Yeah, had a spike in his pocket.
There, I'm leaving it. Even with our laugh attack, I'm leaving
it. Where are we going? Threw the spike to Jimmy. Jimmy got ace good, bleeding all over the place. You know, he was at the time a young, good-looking kid. It's always shocking to see someone like that, an athletic young guy, get all fucked up and bloody. So that was cool. Got Jimmy some heat. Yeah, like I said before, Jimmy Jacobs has always kind of been a staple with IWA throughout the years in spurts. I think he knows his role there, and you know he's had matches with almost everybody, and almost all of the young guys that have come up through the ranks have at some point crossed paths with Jimmy Jacobs. So he's definitely a guy that I have a lot of respect for, and I think you know he's taken you know full advantage of the role that he has in developing guys through IWA specifically. But again, overall, like you said, it may not go very far in the future, but I think in this moment it was fitting for this show. It fit that Heartbreak moniker pretty well, and I think the fans were super into it.
Yeah, a couple weeks before this, Jimmy had busted open Ace Perry at Jammers, and teenage girls were crying, real tears in the crowd, seeing Ace Perry busted open like that. Ace Perry and other competitors still going at it. I just did commentary on a match of his for Unsanctioned Pro. So if you have a Triller TV account, definitely check out Fake Beach 2024. So, yeah, Fake Beach 2024 to see Ace Perry in the main event of that show. Still going at it. Definitely not as clean cut as he used to be. Still an incredible pro wrestler. I wish more people would get on the Ace Perry train because he is fantastic. But we come to the main event of the evening. IWA Midsouth World title on the line. Chris Hero, your challenger, taking on Kongo Kong, led to the ring by Rodney Rush. I always thought it was cool that Kong wore the belt, even if he had the extenders on. It just made it seem like a big deal, whereas, you know, usually heavyweights, you know, throw it on the shoulder or around their head or whatever. Kongo Kong's a monster, but it just put a proper respect on the IWA World title that he wore it around his waist, in my opinion. Chris Hero is not from Metropolis, Illinois, as Rico Beatty announced, just Metropolis because, you know, Superman. After the ring introductions, Rodney Rush gets out of the ring and just eats shit. I don't know if his ring, that's for sure. I don't know if his pants were too long and they got hooked under his shoes or whatever the fuck, but he hits the floor, and when I say hits the floor, he hit the floor just straight down.
Yeah, the funniest part of it is the reactions of everyone else. So Kong is right there on that corner, and he kind of turns a little bit and looks down, and he's like, what the fuck? And Hero's all the way across the ring watching the whole thing happen, and he keeps his straight face the entire time, which clearly neither one of us could do.
Right.
So big ups to Chris Hero. And then right there in the crowd, the first row is just kind of sitting there watching, and there's a couple kids in the second row that are standing up. Like they pop up immediately when they see him fall, and they're like, this fucker. It's just great. Like the reactions across the board. It's like time froze for a minute. There's no commentary. Right. Everybody's just watching this fucker fall off the rope and dying about it. It was great. Highlight of the match for sure. And it was a great match.
I gotta think that on commentary, I'm just having a laugh attack and trying to keep it together. Because they're, like you said, silent. It's silent. So I'm probably just dying laughing. This match is great, man. I watched it last night with Jess Beesneys, my wife, and they're just beating the shit out of each other. They don't bump for like the first 10 minutes. It's just all strikes, but it feels like a main event. It feels like, one of those all Japan matches of the 90s where they're just throwing, everything they can, every kind of strike. They brawl around the ringside area. They use chairs and, they're sabooing each other with chairs. And at one point, Hero's just tossing multiple chairs out of the ring at Kong. And Kong's catching them and swatting them away. Kong gets caught in a cravat going for the big splash on Hero. At this point in the match, I'm losing my voice because I told you I used to raw dog commentary and not, have cough drops or gum or mint or anything like that. So I'm just losing my voice and I don't know how to not lose my voice. So, it's cracking. It sounds like I'm going through puberty at the time. Detroit 3 had tried to run out and Rodney Rush sends him to the back like, no, we don't need you, yada, yada. And then after that, there's a split crowd chant, half for Hero, half for Kong that I thought was super awesome, a super awesome atmosphere to be a part of. It really felt like, that Hero Joe match during the Highland days of, this two big heavyweights going at it, going here in the main event. Kongo Kong wins with a Fire Thunder Driver after delivering 4 Saito suplexes. Before that, Chris Hero hit 4 top rope double foot stomps, and it could not put Kongo Kong down. After the match, Hero cuts a great promo, pretty much putting over Kong, saying, I haven't got my ass whooped like that in a while, and I got this title shot off of my reputation and my history here in IWA Mid-South. And I think during the pre-show opening announcements, Ian had said, like, Chris Hero is going to be around, at least 8 shows. We've already got it signed, already scheduled. He's going to be back in IWA Mid-South quite a bit here in the year 2015. So Hero's basically saying, like, I got this because of my reputation, but now I'm going to start from the bottom and work my way back to that title because I'm not getting my ass whooped like that a second time around. What'd you think of this main event, Mike?
Yeah, I think a big part of it was the intro of the match and just kind of the big fight feel like you talked about early on. There's an epic stare down between the two of them, which I think is kind of a lost art in wrestling. They're so quick to jump right into it that they don't have a proper stare down. And I thought that was huge for this match, not only because of the magnitude of the match, but it also sized up the two guys in it. So typically we think of Chris Hero as a huge guy, right? A pretty big guy. Next to Kong, he looked tiny. And I think that's a big part of the narrative of the match is, Kong is a monster. He's huge. In every way, he is the opposite of Chris Hero. And, Chris Hero, in name especially, is a hero character. Kong is a monster character in name and stature. And I think that stare down really got it over well. And if you knew nothing about the history or either one of these two guys, you would look at them standing in the ring and be like, all right, this is the guy that's going to save us from this gigantic monster. And I think, some of the unspoken stuff in wrestling that's missed nowadays was really captured in this match. You talked a lot about how they just beat the shit out of each other for a good 10 minutes before either one of them sold anything. There was, Chris Hero, chop, 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 forearm, standing boot. Like, let me throw my whole arsenal at this guy to get him down. And even that didn't work. And, it all builds to that finish where Kong hits the Fire Thunder Driver and it's game over. And there's no antics, there's no shenanigans, which this entire show was full of, right? Almost every match had some kind of, run in or fucked up finish or something ridiculous. And for a match involving Kong, who has a manager and also kind of another stable behind him, they don't need that. It's just a match. And they beat the shit out of each other, and the best man on that night won, and that was Kong. And I think that goes back to the dual chant that you mentioned is the fans respected Kong not only as a wrestler but as a champion too. And he was a heel character, but he was their champion, and he fucked people up for quite a bit of time, and really no one stood up to him and no one could take him down during that time. So it really did a lot. It was kind of an old school, like you said, Japan match, and just beat the shit out of each other. Hero looked great. Kong looked great. They both came out super strong. The IWA title came out looking super strong. And just the entire promotion was like, yep, this was a great match, and this is kind of what we could do. So like you said, perfect match, perfect main event. And I think this was the perfect show to have that on, where, you know, it's called Heartbreak. You've done a lot of emotional things in this show and had so many different characters, but it all goes back to the fundamentals of wrestling. Bad guy, good guy, you know, monster, hero, that whole thing. And it just kind of really brought it back to the fundamentals of what wrestling is.
Right, absolutely agree. And I think with the not using, you know, all the bullshit, the dog and pony show and all that shit, it really, you know, made Kong legit as an IWA World Champion, defeating someone like Chris Hero without any bullshit, just straight up, you know, in the middle of the ring. Kong would go on to keep the IWA World title for 336 days, eventually losing it to Isaiah. And, you know, it was quite a run, like you said, for Kongo Kong during one of the IWA relaunches. Before he was Kongo Kong, he was the Juggernaut Osiris, and Ian actually put him against Necro and had him run through Necro in like 2009 for this IWA relaunch. And, you know, it didn't end up happening then. And then when we returned to action in 2013 after some start and stops, you know, Kongo Kong was a made man. He defeated Isaiah in the finals of that title tournament in June of 2014, and then lost it in May of 2015. So he only has a few more months to be the IWA World Champion after defeating Chris Hero here. Like we mentioned, the number 2 contender, Mitch Page, gets defeated at the end of the month, and then he defeats Shane Mercer, Zodiac, the American Viking, Shane Mercer again. Dewey Barnes gets a shot as a, like, yeah, you don't have an opponent for me, I'll pick this guy type thing from Rodney Rush. And then after he runs through Dewey Barnes, Isaiah makes the challenge, and it's another magical moment, a full circle moment for, you know, having beat him in the finals of the tournament. I thought Heartbreak was a great show. Like you said, there was, I think, always going back watching stuff now, there's always stuff that you could trim some time off of, and you know, 5 minutes off the opening tag, 5 minutes off the 6-man, you know, 8 minutes off that 10-man scramble, and it could have been, you know, a little tighter, especially being at the show. You know, it was like a 3-hour something show on IWTV, so it was probably 4, close to 5 hours live with intermissions and, you know, getting people out of the ring and cleaning up shit and yada, yada, yada. But I thought it was a great show. Definitely good to, you know, kind of skip around and do, you know, early 2000s and then later and then early and then later. I think for me, because I don't want to just do rewatches on stuff that I've already called. You know what I mean? Even though it's been almost 10 years, I don't want to hear my voice that much, if we're being completely honest. In terms of, I forgot about doing the, you know, what was going on in the world, but let's see what we have. If the action looks like it's coming your way, yeah. We had a couple of those, right?
I caught one early on in the opening match from Bentley. Even get your shit and go.
Okay. Okay.
So we got at least one.
I'm gonna say Rico probably said it because Rico would say it quite often. Best theme of the night. Mine's probably the Chris Hero theme song, just because it's a banger, by Viro the Virus. Chris is awesome. What say you, Mike?
It was The Wedding. It was
The Wedding?
1,000 Years by Christina Perry. That was the one for me. Man. Woo. If ever there was going to be a song that made me give a shit about a wrestling wedding, that's the one. So, you know what?
Right.
Got me.
Match of the night, it has to be the main event for me, especially watching it back as recently as last night. I watched the rest of the show, within the last month or so. So, the main event and the semi-main event are fresh on my mind. I just thought it was a great main event. I wish I could see Kongo Kong versus Chris Hero nowadays, because I think it would be even better. I believe the only other time they ever touched was in the finals of the 2015 TPI tournament, and Kongo Kong won that tournament. Let me check to be sure.
Yeah,
so that
I
it was
agree.
in
I
December.
think that was definitely the match of the night. And Gresham and BJ had a good match too, but it didn't. As a standalone match, great, but in comparison to the Hero and Kong match, I think you got to go that way. What you mentioned about Hero and Kong matching up again, I do always like that Ian kind of had that trend is like there would be some guys that would just not get a win on another guy. So like for sure Hero is probably the most credentialed, maybe not the most credentialed, but of the two, significantly more credentialed in the grand scheme of pro wrestling than Kongo Kong is. But he just couldn't get over that mountain, not only once, but twice, it sounds like. So I like that Ian kind of kept it real with doing that. And, the generic wrestling booking would tell you, okay, this guy gets the first win, this guy gets the second win, and then we do another one. But to break from that mold, I think, is a little bit risky, especially when you're talking about a guy like Chris Hero that everybody knows. And just having him not be able to beat that guy, I think makes it more real. And, we've all been through life in certain situations where we just can't get over that one thing. And even if we know we are better than that, we just can't do it. And, I like that realness within the booking of wrestling. And I think Ian understands that or understood that.
Right. Yeah. So this was in February of 2015. In December of 2015, Kong defeated Hero and Shane Mercer to win the TPI final. And I did misspeak. I forgot that for the 20th anniversary show in 2016, October of 2016, Hero defeated Kongo Kong and Shigehiro EDA in a three-way. And it could have been a triple threat where he pinned Shiggy, and I don't recall in terms of IWA matches. And then for AAW in Chicago, the Jim Lynam Memorial Cup, which is like their TPI, Hero defeated Kongo Kong in October of 2016. So it was about a year. Well, actually, so Hero defeated him on October 6th, 2016 at Jammers, and then October 7th, 2016, Hero defeated him at AAW. So it was a weekend full of Kongo Kong and Chris Hero that weekend. So that's fun to look back on. But in the year 2015, Chris Hero could not beat the IWA World Champion Kongo Kong, and Kong had actually lost the title in like summer of 2015 to Bentley with some shadiness, if I'm not mistaken. And then Bentley put the title on the line in TPI, and Bentley lost the title back to Kong. So Kong left with the IWA World title and the 2015 TPI trophy that we didn't have a trophy for. So cool little background there in terms of Chris Hero and Kongo Kong. Let's see, do we have anything else? Moment of the night, probably Rodney Rush falling and busting his ass. if I'm being honest.
I think so. We got an MVP.
MVP, it's probably Hero. Like that's why the people are there.
Yeah, it's a tough one for me. It's between Hero and Bentley. I thought Bentley did a really good job in not only that match, but he did some commentary and stuff too. And I felt like the crowd was really behind that match. Obviously, it was a lot because of JC, but I think Bentley fit the other side of that bill pretty well too. And I mean, we're gonna give it to Hero more times than not. So a close second, I'll give it to Reed Bentley. We do also have an Ask Maniwa question.
Oh no!
Is now the appropriate time for that? We got one.
I did not get a Ask Mike question, so we'll just have to keep pushing this until we become world famous rich podcasters. Yeah,
we'll get one. All right. So this question is from Vinny in Stamford, Connecticut. What is your favorite venue that IWA has run shows in? And I think that's kind of an open-ended question, especially for you that's been there for all of them. Maybe I'll put a little spin on it. Is what venue do you have the fondest memories in with IWA?
Like you said, I've been around IWA since the very beginning, all the way back in 1996. So, I started off with the old Kmart building, and all these venues, you go from the old Kmart building to the Total Eclipse Teen Club, which is right down the road from the Kmart building. And then you go from there to, I think we went from there to just random like armories in Indiana. And then we found the Charlestown building, which is, the Blue Barn, the infamous Blue Barn. And then after that, we went to the, I think we did more spot shows, and we were hitting, Indianapolis at the Knights of Columbus, and then we would hit this and this and this, and then we found the Shriners Club, which is a, not the greatest building in terms of height of the ceiling, so you couldn't jump off the top rope. And then after that, we went to Clarksville and ran Clarksville for a little bit. And then late 03, 04 is when we started like running all over the place in Indiana and Illinois and doing quad shots and stuff of that nature. And, I after like 05-ish, I stopped traveling to shows because I was missing too much school. And despite living literally next door to the school, I was missing too much school, and they were talking about like, that being an issue and maybe not graduating and stuff like that. So I stopped traveling to shows until, I would pop into like an indie show or whatever, and IWA moved up to Illinois, and they were running shows in Bellevue. Where King of the Death 2010 and 2011 was, that terrible, dilapidated building up there in Bellevue. And then once they came back down this way, that's when the Colgate Gym started and Jammers, and then the Arena, eventually the Memphis Flea Market. So just to give a history of all the venues that I had seen, I think probably my favorite is probably, at the old Kmart building, I was, 8 years old. So I didn't have to do anything. So I just watched the show, you know what I mean? And then later on, I had all these jobs. In terms of, I want to say probably Colgate Gym is. I'm really trying to think here.
It's a tough question.
Yeah, I like the look of the Colgate Gym, with the bleachers and stuff like that. The old Kmart building definitely, just all the memories in Charlestown too, like, getting to see like future, main eventers, world champions, cut their teeth. So I would say
you got different reasons, right? In the early days, it was because you enjoyed watching the shows. In the later days, you finally you could kind of appreciate the art that was happening and the magic moments that were happening at that time. And then toward the end, you have different memories because you're so involved that you're proud of your efforts and that, on some of those shows. So I get it. It's totally like you have different trains of thought or different ways of thinking for each one of those based on the point in life that you were at. And I mean, we all feel different about the wrestling that we grew up with versus what's on right now, right? It was magic when you're younger, and then as you kind of get more smart to the business, or you think you are, you feel differently about it, and it just has a different degree of magic in your mind.
Right. Yeah, I would definitely have to put the Highland Rec Center as a top venue for us because we always drew, 300 people, 250. It was always a packed house. So even for those quad shots where there was 4 shows in a row, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, it was just work into Saturday so we could, have the good house. Nobody's going to be stressed because everyone's going to get paid, at least for the Saturday show, and then, use the Saturday proceeds to pay off Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Yeah, so definitely Highlands up there as well.
That
I'd say
mid-2000s?
Yeah, that was like where TPI 04 was, like
Yeah.
the carpeted basketball gym with the no dunking.
No dunking, yeah.
So I would say Highlands probably up there. Before we took over the Memphis Flea Market back corner, we just had like an arena set up in like 4 or 5 booths, and that was I like that because the concession stand served biscuits and gravy, and I got to eat biscuits and gravy while I did commentary, so that was great.
Do you want to give some? You mentioned the Colgate gym, and we talked about that a little bit kind of recently. Do you want to give some of the background on that? Because that's kind of a cool story too.
Yeah, we were talking about the Colgate gym because, I was trying to give you the history of, Colgate and all that stuff. And the Colgate factory used to be a state prison and then eventually turned into a Colgate factory. And because of it was a state prison, that's where the Colgate gym came from. That's why there is a gym behind that factory, because it was the prison gym. So I always like that venue too, just because it's so spacious, and like I said, you don't have to worry about hitting your head. There's room for everyone to move. There's room, like when we returned to Kentuckiana in 2013, we had like 494 people with comps included in the Colgate gym, which was incredible for us at IWA Midsouth. This big return, all the old timers and new talent, and really got to experience a packed house at the Colgate gym. So I would say probably, man, I don't know if I can have a one answer, but definitely Highland, Charlestown, the Colgate gym. I even like Jammers too. And obviously I'm still doing stuff at the arena with Grindhouse and Paradigm Pro Wrestling. Definitely check out Paradigm Pro Wrestling's Project Gemini on Triller TV. There's some real fucking bangers on that. Omega and Filthy Tom Lawler, I believe, airs tonight, Thursday, the February 29th, leap year. So definitely check that out if you have a Triller TV account. So I just love going into an arena and everything being set up, and there's minimal work to do. Like for the Jeffersonville Arena, the ring stays up the whole time. You just have to like tighten the ropes or whatever. So I enjoy buildings like that where all I have to do is plug up a laptop into the sound system and set up my cameras and we're good to go. So that's a hard one. What's your favorite IWA venue, Mike? Or just favorite BTW venue or any venue out your way?
Yeah, let's start with IWA. There was a building, and it's probably a blip on the radar for you, and it may even be that period where you weren't going to shows. I think it was King of the Deathmatch 05?
Yeah.
In that big-ass gym with the blue curtain?
Yes, that's the playing field. It's like a sports complex where we did quite a few shows there. Like you said, King of the Death 05. I think we ran there all the way to like almost 08, definitely 07. That was
a fun building. It was huge, and
it was massive.
for something like King of the Death, where you want a lot of space so you can do all kinds of crazy apparati outside of the ring. I thought that was a cool venue. And like I said, it was huge, and it was an important time. And, you know, one of the peaks of my interest in IWA was kind of at that time. So that's immediately what my mind goes to. Looking back with a little bit more of a nostalgic thing, some of the older buildings where Punk kind of grew up in, like the Blue Barn, I think was the most prominent one, probably. Right, with that time period.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was, again, not knowing it in person, but just knowing it on TV. That was another big one. So I'll go with either one of those. Out here, for me, with specifically Big Time Wrestling, their home base was always at the Newark Pavilion, which is kind of like a Portuguese community center kind of situation. And so they had, like, you know, like the bingo thing on the wall and the chandeliers and the stage and that whole thing. It wasn't huge, but they would pack like 400 people in there, and they had the stage on the one side where everybody would kind of come out, and they had 2 rows of seating there, and then they had the 2 rows on the other sides, and then down the length of the building was kind of the general admission seating.
Right.
And they would pack that son of a bitch full, especially depending on who they had as the name on the show. And, you know, that was always their home base. That's where I kind of grew up in going to wrestling shows, was that place. And it always felt like home until, you know, kind of the later days where I stopped going. And then I would go and it would be like, I don't even know what this place is anymore. But definitely those early days, you would go there just because it felt like home and it felt comfortable. So for me, that's always going to be the one. It's also kind of where WWE star Bayley grew up, you know, same circle. And, you know, she would go to shows there as, you know, 10, 11, 12, 14, 15-year-old kid, and, you know, grew up in that same environment. So it will always have a special place, I think, for all fans of, you know, West Coast, California, indies, and Big Time Wrestling specifically.
Right, definitely. Yeah, you know, obviously Bayley doing like stuff for like .com and YouTube and stuff. She's definitely gone back and you know, looked at some of the old training schools and you know, old clips, and you've sent me clips that she's you know, appeared on, and you even ring announced some. So it's definitely cool to look back and, you know, see that, you know, she is now the Royal Rumble winner and going on to WrestleMania to fight Io Sky for the.
And then on the
women's.
other side of that, you know, back there in your neck of the woods in Louisville, Billy Starks, right? Same situation.
Right.
And I think you even sent me one as recently as a couple of days ago of her with her mom at ringside.
Yep. We were watching the main event last night, and there's a perfect shot of Hero talking against the ropes, and all you see is you know, young ass Billy Starks, her mom, Mouse, and her brother in the background of the picture. Just super cool to see. You know, she started at Jammers and then Colgate, and you know, eventually started training at the arena. She's like the first lady, the first child of the Jeffersonville Arena. So definitely cool to see what she's done in her wrestling career since starting out as a arena kid, essentially. So that is it for us here for Heartbreak 2015. You know, obviously it will be March tomorrow, so we will be back very soon. It will not be the end of the month like this one was. Time got away from us. Sick kids, sick adults, scheduling, you know, real life shit going down. So
bunch of excuses.
Yes. So if you have any suggestions for a let's say like 2008 March show that is on IWTV, let's hear them. You can ask questions to me at Ruff.Figures@gmail.com, or you can ask questions for Mike Ruff at nickmaniwa@gmail.com. As always, you can follow me at nickmaniwa. Like I mentioned on the last show, my calendar of events. I have GCW tomorrow and Saturday. Tomorrow is the St. Louis area. That is at Pop's Nightclub in the St. Louis area. Indianapolis, Marriott East, and Indy for Keep in Touch, which features a Nate Webb career celebration. On March 8th, I have Paradigm Pro Wrestling's Hoosier Hysteria, the Fighting Spirit Grand Prix, and the Battle for the Skies tournament at the arena in Jeffersonville. As always, every last Sunday, or I believe this for March, it's the second to last Sunday because the last Sunday is Easter, if I'm not mistaken, for Grindhouse Pro Wrestling on Facebook. And then 420, I have Unsanctioned Pro Ace of Cups. I just did the podcast with Will and Harper, so that will be up on the Unsanctioned Pod feed very soon, where we talked about the last show and then hyped the 420 show. 421, I have Paul Cade at the arena with my friend Chad French. 428, Grindhouse Pro Wrestling once again at the Jeffersonville Arena. And then May 18th and June 15th back at the Ace of Cups in Columbus, Ohio for Unsanctioned Pro. So that's what I got coming up.
Nick, can you remind me? Can you remind me who's returning to Unsanctioned Pro on that 420 show?
We have the return of the Big Boofa, Desmond Cole, Kevin Blackwood, Akira, and Rachel Armstrong. Already signed for that show. New Unsanctioned Pro champion Charlie Tiger will be taking on Yoya, and the team of These Men Do Not Exist of Victor Analog and Anakin Murphy defend their tag team titles against the Audi of Chris Copeland and Jack Andrews. That's already signed, plus the returning superstars, plus, John Wayne Murdoch won the Hardcore Championship, so I'm sure he will be involved on the 420 show. So much more to be announced. We have a little bit of time to get there, but if you live in the Columbus or around, driving distance, definitely check out the Ace of Cups on 420, 518, and 615. They have a ticket special where you can get all three shows for $60 if you get the GA ticket, or if you want the VIP ticket, which is front row, you can get all three shows for $90. So you're either spending $28 a show or $30 a show. And those will also, as of right now, be on Triller TV. So you can check that out when the shows happen. Mike, anything you want to plug? I got all my plugs in.
I'm good. Let's let you take it home. Go check out Unsanctioned Pro. Go meet Nick Maniwa and go see the Big Boofa.
As always, Ruff.Figures.com for any work that you need from Mike Ruff. We've seen Jordan Castle figures drop. We've seen some Dave Prazak figures drop. We got some knee pad sleeves being worn. We got some logo shirts being given away. So I'm sure you'll hear me talking some Ruff.Figures.com on some streams coming up very soon. And like I said, if you have any March pre-2008 shows that you want us to review and watch, and we will see what we can do, please make sure it's on IWTV. That way, if anyone wants to watch it, they can. And I guess with that, we will end this episode of Mid-South Memories. That's all I got to say. I'm out of here.